Hello and welcome. This is part 3 of the Mastery Bootcamp. My name is Jeffrey Mays. In part 1, we talked about the problem and its results, the problem of Cram-Pass-Forget ruling the day and students not learning and being frustrated with school. In part 2, we talked about some principles for mastery learning and what that looks like, primarily cumulative assessments, which I said I was going to save for later, and we're going to talk about that next. All right, so cumulative assessments. For those of you who don't know what that's referring to, I'm talking about quizzes and tests that are cumulative. In other words, they draw on material that goes back to the beginning of the year all year long. That means in April, quizzes and tests are still drawing on material that go all the way back to September. Now, when you first tell students about this, that this is the way it is now in Novare curriculum, they are going to freak out, like this woman here. They're not going to know what to do. You're going to have to tell them that there is a new sheriff in town, a new regime, and you're going to have to tell them this on the first day. The very first day, you need to sit them down and have a come to Jesus moment and say, this is not like what you are used to. The old Cram-Pass-Forget cycle will not work anymore. You cannot pass this class if you do not change the way you study. And we talked about that in part 2, and we're going to look at it more closely here right now. Tell them that all the tests and quizzes are cumulative. However, this is key. This is so key. Only material from the objectives list will be included on the assessments. Do you remember back in part 2, I was saying some things about the objectives list? In Novare textbooks, on the first page of every chapter, you will see a list of learning objectives for that chapter. This is a student's best friend. Point them to that. Go, if you have a book, open it up right now. See what I'm talking about. It's at the beginning of every chapter. There are sometimes 15, sometimes 20 or 30 learning objectives. But they know, students can know that if they can do everything on that list, they are golden. They can pass any assessment and they'll be fine. So it's not open-ended. Their study is limited to this list and this only. And if it says something like, be able to state 4 properties of electrons, then that doesn't mean 3, and it doesn't mean 5. So they don't over-prepare and they don't under-prepare. Okay? One last word about learning objectives. There's a good way and a bad way to write a learning objective. A bad way would be know about electrons, know about density. A better learning objective is quantifiable. So it would include words like explain, define, describe, state, calculate. State 4 properties of electrons, not know about electrons. The next thing is there will be no credit for homework. In other words, you're not gonna assign a grade. Okay, so in part 2, when I said that. When I said get rid of multiple choice and matching and fill in the blank, if you're a teacher, you might have heard that and said, well, now you're talking about loading me up with a lot of long homework to grade. And now I'm telling you, no, I'm not. Because you do not need to grade the homework, teachers and parents, for accuracy. You grade it for completion. You look it over and make sure they did it, but you don't have to grade it for accuracy. Now, why? Many of you already know why, and I've spoken to lots of people who are already on board with this, so I'm glad about that. The problem is that homework is a very poor assessment of student learning. There are too many ways to get the answers and circumvent real learning. Those ways are like, they can search on the internet. They can copy from friends. They may have older siblings who took the class and still have their binder, and they can just get it and copy the stuff over. There's too many ways to get the answers, so take away the incentive to cut corners, to cheat, to undermine their own learning, and don't grade it. Just make sure that they do it. All right? Why? So they're going to say, well, why? Because they have to do it because they have to master the skills so that they're ready when the assessment does come. But but the reason is because homework is a time to get it wrong. Homework is a time for mistakes. It's a time for learning. I like to compare it to sports practice. Okay, it's like football practice. Homework is the time to drop the ball is at football practice. The time to catch the ball is on game day. So you drop the ball, drop the ball, drop the ball. But then it's practice. So on game day, you catch the ball. And so the student is working a homework problem. Well, I'll come to that in a minute. One last thing I want to say about homework is that students, this is dark, all right? This makes my skin crawl. Students often rely on heavy credit from homework to get them through after a bad test grade. I know this because it was me. And it might have been you as well. You might do poorly on a test, but the teacher says, oh, it's okay. If you can keep your daily grade up on your homework, then you'll be fine. Well, if they copied the homework from the internet or from their friends and got a good grade, well, then they didn't learn it on the homework. And then they didn't learn it on the test. And then they can still get a good passing grade. They can pass the class and not having learned anything. Easy homework and busy work enables this kind of thing. So that's why we have to get rid of using homework to give credit. It doesn't determine, it's not a good assessment of student learning, so why allow it to determine their grade? Okay, this is what I was going to get to. Provide answers to all computations. All the computations. In Novare books, sometimes it's in the back of the book, sometimes it's right there on the page, right next to the problem set. The answers to the computation questions. The reason is because if you're not going to give credit for homework, then why, the thing to do is to give them the answers as well. Because when they're sitting where? At the kitchen table doing their homework, then they do the problem, they look and they see they got the answer wrong. And then they go, why did I get it wrong? And so they go back and they start working and they keep working on it until they figure it out. The point is that the teachable moment is when they're sitting there working it out with a pencil and paper and they get it wrong, and then they can go back and learn. What happened in my experience was, and probably in many students' experience today, is you turn in the homework assignment, the teacher takes it up, 2 weeks later, you get that assignment back, it's got a 43 on it, the student says, oh well, and sticks it in his binder and never looks at it again. Okay, that's bad strategy, that's happening everywhere all the time. All right, so we provide the answers and don't give a grade on homework. Okay, develop a regular review plan. Yes, I do mean review. You're going to have to review because the assessments are cumulative. You better review. You better keep not everything. Okay, that's what this is not about. It sounds like we just told them you have to remember everything. You can never forget anything again, and that's not the case. Remember, I said at the beginning of this presentation, only material from the objectives list is included on the assessments. But all of that you do need to keep reviewing. Now, they can customize this however they want. They can use flashcards, which is my favorite. Not everyone likes flashcards. Sometimes they just can't make them work. Okay, fine, let's find some other ways to do it. You can work the exercises in the back of every chapter. You can work them 2 and 3 times. Work them over. There's not a problem with working those problems again. Why? Why not? Because the point is not to jump through a hoop and finish it and get a grade. The point is to learn it. Okay? And students are going to go, what? I already did that homework. So? You're still trying to learn it. Do it again. Oh, but I already did it. Oh, you got the wrong idea. This is not about get the assignment done so you never have to think about it again. And what if that was the way they did football or exercise? Okay, you got to do 30 sit-ups. Okay, I did 30 sit-ups. The next day, coach says, okay, 30 sit-ups. What? I did 30 sit-ups yesterday. I thought I was done with it. You see, it's about learning. Got to get that through their heads. It's not about just checking it off so you never have to look at it again. They can rework old quizzes and tests. This is a great plan. This is a great idea. They can work their old quizzes and tests over again. And by the way, teachers, this means that they need to have access to the correct answers, to the answer key to those quizzes and tests available to them so that they can use them for study. They do need to do corrections on their quizzes and tests, and we advise teachers to create a binder in the classroom, and every quiz they take, then you take a copy of that quiz with correct answers on it, put it in the binder, and it sits there for the students to use as they need it for their study. They need to read every chapter. We're really big on reading at Novare, and so they need to read a little bit every day. They need to read the chapter twice, if possible, if they have time. They need to take notes on the chapter, on their reading, okay? Because it's about learning. It's not about getting it done. And so, everybody, teachers, parents, teach your students, do not sit down and think you're going to read the whole chapter in one sitting. Do not sit down and think you're going to do the whole problem set in one sitting. They need to do a little bit every day. There's so many of these things I want to say are the cornerstone, but I can't make everything the cornerstone. But still, this is critical. Instead of working for 2 hours on Thursday for the test on Friday, have them do 30 minutes a day. 10 minutes of that will be review, and 20 minutes of studying new content, reading the chapter, whatever. They need to have daily interaction for a smaller amount of time so it's not burdensome, but they come back to it every day at the kitchen table for 30 minutes. They will be fine. Last thing I'll say on the subject of review is I advocate using YouTube and the internet for additional visualizations or additional explanation. If they just want somebody else's voice or somebody else to explain that principle again, let them use the internet. It's okay. And if you're thinking, well, but is there a video for that? Let me tell you, every single concept that you will find in a middle school and high school science class, there are a dozen videos illustrating that same principle, so use those. Don't let your kids get lost on the internet while they're supposed to be doing homework, so supervise them, but yeah, let them use that. Okay, again, kids are not going to be used to this mastery learning thing. They're going to not like it at first. They will not like it, but they will come to love it. And they will come to be thankful for it because they will see for the first time in their lives that they really are learning something and it's rewarding. And that old thing about hard work is its own reward, they will finally believe that that's true. It's not just a fusty old saying that their grandfather used to say. It's true. And they will thank you for it. Some final advice here, a few points. Oh boy, I want to stress this. Set expectations on day one. Have that talk with them. Talk to them about you're entering a new world. Novare is there. Those guys are changing the world of science education, so you can't do the same way anymore. Talk to them about what mastery learning looks like. Next, you want to cultivate an attitude of entering the world of scientific study. One of our favorite sayings around here is, we want to draw students upward into the adult world of science investigation. We're not taking the science and bringing it down to package it for the children. We're drawing students upward. And so we're not trying to raise children, we're trying to raise adults, right? And so hey, come on. So tell them, hey, there's a wonderful world of science going on out there right now, and it's amazing and it's exciting, but you got to learn the language, you got to learn the skills. So come on up, and we're going to bring you into that world. Doing our experiments is about entering the skin of a real laboratory scientist and learning those skills and learning how science actually works. The next thing, remind them that it is not about the grade. Not about the grade, it's about learning. So this is how you need to reprogram them to stop thinking about the problem sets as a thing that you just check off and you never look back. Reading the chapter is a thing you check off and never look back. It's about learning. I did this when I was homeschooling one of my kids. I just had to throw grades out completely because it was undermining his learning. It was working against him. I won't tell you the whole story. Maybe some other time, some other video presentation. But at homeschool, we were able to do that. And grades are a necessary evil in a larger institution where you have a lot of kids to assess and assign grades to. Sometimes you have to, but I wish we could get rid of grades completely and say we're only going to focus on learning, not grades. And lastly, another thing I discovered is the beauty of rejoicing over errors and mistakes. Don't treat errors and mistakes as failure, as oh no, as a blow to my self-esteem. Treat them as opportunities for further learning. I'll say briefly, when my own son, I was homeschooling, and we'd find a mistake or an error on a basic skill, a low. I was high school homes. What am I trying to say? I was homeschooling him through high school, 10th and 11th grade. And we discovered that there were some 7th, 8th grade skills he didn't know yet, like converting a fraction to a decimal, stuff like that. And when we discovered this, he felt terrible about it. And he felt guilty, and he felt like a failure. And I just said, no, we're going to rejoice over these, because when we find them, that means we have an opportunity to do something about it. We're going to fix it. We're going to sit down right now and learn how to convert fractions into decimals, and we're going to work it, and so you never forget it again. And whenever we find one of these, we rejoice. We say, hey, we found one. Okay, hooray, we're going to have pizza tonight. And then we just make a big deal out of it. So it's a cause for celebration, because now we know what we don't know, right? Because that's important. Okay, my last quote here. Have you ever seen at the gym those shirts or a bumper sticker that says, pain is weakness leaving the body? Well, I took that and converted it to errors are ignorance leaving your brain. So don't worry about making mistakes and errors. It's an opportunity for greater learning. All right, this has been a short presentation, three presentations. If you want to know more about this, you want a more in-depth treatment, please read this book right here. It's not that long. It's a great summer read for teachers getting ready to teach a high school class, science class. This is our manifesto. This is all the boiled down 10 years worth of experience in mastery learning and how to do it in your educational context. It says it's for Christian schools, but so much of it is good for homeschooling as well. And we also love to talk to people. If you would like to talk to us, then you can email or call us on the phone. We talk to parents and teachers all the time to answer questions and help solve problems. So we look forward to talking to you. Thanks for listening.